Commissioner Blondis, Commissioner Deerdeck,
Present.
Commissioner Granillo,
Present.
Commissioner Ives.
He is excused.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Montoya,
Present.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Present.
Commissioner Pettis,
Present.
Chair Long.
Present.
You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next is approval of our agenda. Is there a motion to approve our agenda?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second.
All right. All those in favor of the motion to approve the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but on Zoom, I can't make out the names and I don't know everybody. When they make a motion, would you say motion made by and seconded by, so I have the name?
I will. The motion to approve the agenda was made by Commissioner Ortiz and the second by Commissioner Montoya.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Madam Chair, I don't believe I have an agenda unless it's hidden in this packet somewhere. No.
It may have been emailed to everyone.
Have it on email, but there was, the email said it was going to be printed. No?
Good evening, Chair Long and Commissioners. I apologize for any ambiguity in my email. What was referenced as being printed is the final version of the 2012-2013 Charter Review Commission report. The agenda was emailed, so you can access it electronically.
And they're going to share the agenda there, so that's good. Next is approval of our minutes. And I have a few changes. I understand some others might. On page 9, the third line, the word count should be court. And also in that line, proponents of term limits cited. Cited should be spelled with a C and not an S. And on page 10, the third paragraph, beginning with Commissioner Ortiz said, looking at some model charters. In that last sentence, the word breaches should be spelled with BREACHES. And then on page 11, 2 paragraphs up from number 7, which is matters from staff. So 2 paragraphs up from that is Commissioner Long said she had voiced concerns about March meetings. It should be said she has received concerns about March meetings. And that's all I had. Does anyone have any other revisions? Yes, Commissioner Blondis.
Can you hear me? Is my mic on? Okay.
Yeah, you need to talk right into the mic, I think, for Elizabeth to
Okay.
hear you and for us to hear you.
On page 3, there are 2 instances where the word THERE has been substituted for THEIR, the possessive pronoun. On page 3, let me see. I don't know. It's in this, I think the first
I can find it.
paragraph under A.
I can find it, Commissioner. You can, that's fine.
You got it? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then page 6. The word he, I believe, would make the line, it's a second paragraph from the bottom. Commissioner Durda said it seems to him our topic F covers a lot more of the same territory. He would like to reserve his comments until he hears from the attorney.
All right, any other revisions?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
On page 8, the word, sorry, I'm an English teacher. I missed yours though. On page 8, it's in the main paragraph that begins with Mr. Murphy. If you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 lines, remain in office, insert and could result if the charter remains.
Okay.
Okay. And then on page 9, I thought in the paragraph that concerns Ms. McSherry said, 5th line down, they are asked, past tense, should the charter be more specific in what is required or more permissive?
Commissioner, let me just say one thing before we get too much further. The minutes have to match the tape. So, and I may need to go back and look at that. You know, sometimes it may not be grammatically correct, but it may be what someone said, and those changes do not get made.
Okay, well, then that may be for page 12 because the other thing was a plural.
Yeah.
At the last sentence, Commissioner Pettis said she agree with Commissioner, should be agrees.
Yeah, and that's probably should be corrected, but one thing everybody needs to know is that errors like this are not, you know, on Ms. Long's errors that she cited are the misspelling of a name, but grammatical and typo type things are not changed. It's only substantive changes that are made, if there are any, in the minutes. So just to let you know.
Okay,
Okay, for the future.
All right. Any other revisions?
I
Yes,
do.
Commissioner Dudek.
So if you go to page 4, I actually have one that changes the meaning of the sentence. And I appreciate the comment about the tape. The second time you see my name against the left margin where it says Commissioner Dudek asked the change, I think what I said was Commissioner Dudek asked whether the change would take effect, and that alters the meaning of the sentence.
And I will check the tape, and if that's the case, I'll make that change, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Any other revisions? Thank you, everyone, for reviewing the minutes so carefully. Is there a motion to approve the minutes with the suggested revisions?
so approved, so I was so moved.
That
Commissioner Blondis.
That is a motion by Commissioner Blondis and a second. Second. A second by Commissioner Ortiz. All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, next we have public comment on the agenda. Do we have anyone that wants to provide public comment? I don't think there is anyone on Zoom, is there? Okay. Action items discussion. First is further discussion and selection of commission topics. So, Elizabeth, we have Commissioner Sarah.
Thank you.
Showing up.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, further discussion and selection of commission topics. So we know we have our required commission topics to consider. And there were some suggested additions at our last meeting by Commissioner Deerdak. There was automatic voter registration, but I think he will speak to that, and voter age decrease in age to be eligible to vote. Commissioner Ortiz had the financial fiscal issues matter that she brought up. Commissioner Ives mentioned rent control, and Commissioner Pettis had the process of convening and paneling boards and commissions. So before we get any further research or assign those topics to any committees, I thought it would be wise to decide whether the committee wants to consider any of the matters as a whole. If we're not ready to do that tonight, we can keep those on hold and see if you have any others. But on the issue of rent control, our city attorneys looked at that, and there is New Mexico statute prohibiting that. So I think we can remove that from the table for now. So why don't we go to the voter issues, to Commissioner Deerdak, and have him tell us about that matter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I may have been clear that it seems to me in the current national climate, and having just been through the experience of the 2022 election cycle here, that I think it's a fundamental precept that is of huge importance to me, that we say to one another as citizens that how we vote is our own business. That we vote is everybody's business. And when there's wide disparity in Santa Fe among its districts as to the extent to which people avail themselves of the polls and participate in our elections, if we have a foundational document before us that can receive some improvement and adjustment and innovation, we should never look away from the opportunity to make our democracy more democratic. Having said that, I did suggest two possibilities that had attracted my attention. One, as you know, there are jurisdictions across the country that do engage in what they call automatic voter registration. State of Oregon is one such, and you may have heard about that. However, since I talked about that here and sent it in a note to the chair, I have been inquiring. I thought that it was smart to get ahead of the game and inquire. And I discovered unintended consequences that I found odd and surprising, but I'm happy that I knew them at the outset. I also discovered that we've only had one cycle in which same-day registration has been fully implemented, and we don't have data yet as to which voting locations had the preponderance of those same-day registrations. And that has an awful lot to do with how we expect registration, how registration plays out, and what influence it has on voter participation. And then I think it's very clear that any number of people will have differences, and attorneys will certainly advise us about whether or not it's even legal to dance with this one. I think it's wisest for me simply to withdraw that and go to the other one. The other was the matter of voting age. And there are municipalities that have reduced the age at which one can register to vote, and they restrict it to municipal elections so that it doesn't run afoul of supersedence by states. But in those cases, what my friends and acquaintances in the election business have said to me is that it's of huge importance that people start voting. When people start voting, they don't stop. The people who don't start voting never do start. And so one way to increase involvement in elections is to have people voting while they're still in civics class in high school. And so what I would like to perfect, and I'll put in the elbow grease, I guess you call it, to do the work, I would like to perfect some text about that and then invite my colleagues here to discuss it. I think I'll leave it there, Nancy, unless you think I should go further.
Yeah, I think if you're willing to do that work and look into this further, then maybe you just bring it back to us.
I'd be happy to. May I ask a question? Procedural question? I would think that someone, I think I know maybe half of the members of the school board. And a couple of them are longtime professional educators. May I talk to them about that? And alert them to the fact that I'm a member of this commission? Or is that,
Oh,
is
no, you
that
can.
stepping on some toes, getting ahead of the game?
I think as part of your research, if you want to do an investigation about whether you think it would be a good idea.
With your foreknowledge that I'm doing that, I'd be happy to do that.
What do you think, Erin? Are you concerned about that?
Madam members of the committee, I think the committee can kind of come up with their way of operating. So if you'd like to do, I think you could have a motion on that subject. It's, I think, within the realm of what's on the agenda. I think the chairperson does speak on behalf of the committee, so I think at least getting her blessing is a good idea for everyone, if you're going to do something like that. What I would like is if you would like staff to help on some of the research, I would like a vote on a matter so that we know that it's something you want to take seriously as the committee as a whole. The matters we've done research on so far, we knew you had to take under consideration because they were in the resolution. So I think that would be my primary preference I'd like to put forth. Beyond that, I think it's up to you.
All right. Well, it sounds like this one is one that will come back to the commission to see if we need, if it's the will of the commission to consider it, and then you would know that you all would be working on that. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Commissioner Durdak, so I don't know if you're aware of this, but Washington DC just passed this voting for 16-year-olds, and I am connected with city council staff that sort of helped move that. So I'd be happy to, like schedule a meeting with us and that person if you'd like.
Oh, be great.
The other thing that's coming to mind, and I don't think this actually happened, but I know that the city of San Jose in California, council member Magdalena Carrasco there was trying to move bill to allow all residents of the city of voting age to be able to vote in municipal and school board elections. So regardless of citizenship status, I don't know if we want to throw that can of worms here, but I'm just sort of flagging that is also something that can happen sort of at the municipal level, right? I don't know if there's any state law that would prohibit us from doing that here in New Mexico, but that was something that some communities in California are trying to pass. Thank you.
Okay, and then Commissioner Ortiz, you had the issue about the fiscal audit issues that you wanted to bring forward.
I took a look at a model city charter. I just happen to have the table of contents in front of me that had 12 different areas regarding financial and budget. And I'm really a proponent of not having to reinvent the wheel because there's a lot of good work out there that other cities and states and counties and organizations have put together. But this was prepared by, it's a publication of the National Civic League. And it's called their Model City Charter. And in there, they mentioned 12 areas regarding financial management. That's not to say we have to adopt all of them, but I think it would be worth to look at them because it's already created. And the areas talk about the fiscal year, pretty straightforward, submission of budget and budget messages, an actual budget message, discussion on a budget, city council action on the budget, appropriation and revenue ordinances, amendments after adoption of the budget, administration and fiduciary oversight of the budget, capital program, city council action on the capital program, independent audit and public records. We wouldn't have to deal with all of them, but I think it would be worth our while to look at it because of the situation the city of Santa Fe finds itself regarding our current audits. And so Again, I think the staff, if this commission decided that we needed to work on this, they could look at this sample, and there's probably others out there. I have a couple of emails, a couple of websites that I've looked at that I can share with the staff so that they can pull together for us samples, and so I would like to see us choose to work on that as one of the areas.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments on that topic? I'm not sure if does our current charter, I'm just kind of flipping through here, deal with any fiscal audit budget matters at all?
Madam Chair, it does have a few things in it. They're relatively limited, which I think Commissioner Ortiz was pointing out last time. There is one of the things that came up last night, in fact, was the Independent Audit Committee. The requirement for an independent audit committee did come from the charter. And that's one of the reasons that those committee members are recommended by the municipal judge. So the enabling ordinance for that, rather than having the mayor appoint or nominate and appoint members, the municipal judge does. That's a very different committee in the city in order to make it independent. But the charter itself is like one liner, and that we shall have an independent audit committee, and that we establish the terms via ordinance, which did happen. That's one example.
Madam Chair, yeah, I have a copy of it here, so it's not a very lengthy narrative. And then it also references the action on the capital program in terms of receiving the report of the internal auditor and presenting that report to the council. So very limited language, but again, we don't have to also make our additional language, if we choose to, very extensive, but just to cover areas that might guide our city in a better manner.
And Chairwoman Long, section 9 or article 9 has a few of these sections. It's investments, procurement, and independent audit committee, 9.01, 9.02, and 9.04. And then the mayor's responsibility to propose a budget is under his powers and duties as another financial related.
I thought budget was in there
provision.
somewhere.
Right. And also salary. And the salary commission is established as well under the mayor's powers and duties. And that's a relatively recent addition.
All right, let's come back to that one to see if maybe we can take a vote on that. And then Commissioner Pettis, you brought up the issue of the process of convening and paneling boards and commissions.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. It's just been brought to my attention by, different folks serving on different boards and commissions and doing some work with boards and commissions that the city of Santa Fe has, I think, over 40 impaneled boards and commissions. That it becomes a burden for staff, right? Because each board needs staff. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity to have boards and commissions. It's an entry point for our residents to participate in decision making, right? I think, frankly, it's sort of like an entry point for folks to then perhaps consider running for city council, et cetera. So it really provides an opportunity for residents to be engaged in the political process and in the civic process. However, I think that it would behoove the city of Santa Fe to have a way to monitor, right? Like how long do boards and commissions operate for? What's sort of the end goal? When do they sunset? I think that there's a bunch of them that just sort of keep on going, and there's a lack of clarity of to what end. So I'm not really clear on what that process would be, but I would really like for this group to look into that and make the whole process more effective and efficient.
All right. Aaron, do you have any thoughts about that? You should probably staff a lot of boards and commissions, or your office does. I don't know how a charter amendment might address that, but
Chairwoman Long, it is not, those types of restrictions are not currently in the charter. I don't see any reason they couldn't be. Right now, most of our boards and commissions are created by either ordinance or resolution. And there has been some staff initiatives in looking at if we can streamline those in their current forms. There are some legislative requests for some legislation to do that. The legislation hasn't been introduced yet. So I'm not sure, how that's going to progress, but some of the ideas is to consolidate and or eliminate some that aren't as active anymore. Because you're right, there are a lot. There may be more than, there may be 50, but some of them aren't active. But there's certainly, I think, 40 maybe that are active. I think if you looked at today's agenda, there was like 10 meetings today or something at the city of Santa Fe, which is either really impressive or really frightening. They were public meetings. So I definitely hear the concern. That's a very, it could be, it could tie the hands of the city, I would guess, if you put anything too specific about boards and commissions in the charter. Right now, they're very flexible arrangements. They could be ended at any time, particularly the resolutions are pretty easy to amend or update. So the advantage of not having in the charter is, we get to model each committee or commission as to how we want it, but most of them have not had sunset dates. Agree.
I mean, perhaps it could be something in the charter, just as far as requiring like a yearly review of the work of the commissions and like, are they serving a purpose anymore, right? I don't know what the process would be, but just something so that it seems like exponential growth of commissions and what are you all to do as staff, right?
And Chairwoman Long, Commissioner Perez, there are a few of the committees that are created by charter. I mean, so as an example, so the Audit Committee, the Salary Commission, the Independent Redistricting Commission, this commission. So at least 4, maybe more, are created in the charter.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think that's all that we had from our last meetings. Not that there won't be more, and we hope that there are, and the public may bring some forward. So why don't we vote on those 2, and then I can assign those to subcommittees. So Commissioner Ortiz, do you want to make a motion for the Charter Commission to consider the fiscal audit issue as part of its work?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that this commission adopt and work on a financial component to be included in our charter as part of our function.
All right, that was Commissioner Ortiz. Elizabeth making the
Thank you.
motion. Is there a second?
I will second the motion.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Montoya. Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. And are there any opposed? No. Okay, so that's one additional topic for us. And then why don't we take up your boards and commissions issue? Commissioner, if you want to make a motion.
Yes, Chair Long, I'd like to make a motion for this commission to look at boards and commissions and their feasibility sunset dates. I'd like for us to take a look at that.
Okay, so that was Commissioner Pettis. And is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Blondis. All those in favor of the motion to consider the boards and commissions issue, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we've got 2 additional issues. And then we'll get to the subcommittees later that I've come up with to consider these issues. Next is request for approval for the finding that it is in the best interest of the public for the Charter Review Commission to conduct Charter Review Commission meetings virtually on January 26th, and then March 9 and March 23 is what's on our agenda. What Aaron was looking at for us is we think that our meetings are on the second and last, so that March date would be wrong for us. Is that right? Is it right that it's wrong?
Yes, Chair Long, I did confirm that the discussion was for the second and last Thursdays of the month, and the March 23rd date is the 4th
So it would be the
or Thursdays, I'm sorry, Thursdays of the month.
Thursdays, yeah.
And that is the 4th instead of the last. So
So we can't vote on that one, but we can do that at a future meeting. So we had discussed, we do have the opportunity to attend these meetings remotely, as some of us have done. But we had also discussed the possibility of having our entire meeting, since we're meeting quite a bit, virtually, just we think that would be the benefit to the public, because we all can attend and the public can attend those meetings too. And as I said as you saw in the minutes, I did hear that March could be a problem for a couple of commissioners to attend in person. And I just think it's best if we can attend by the same method. So if we're all virtual, it seems to work better than some and some not. We're not always going to be able to do that, or I'll meet in person. So these are the first meeting would be our next meeting. And then the other one would be March 9th. And at our next meeting, we can consider whether we want to do the 30th. So that means we would all be on Zoom together. So you could do that meeting from anywhere. And you will also, as you will hear soon, be on some subcommittees. So we think this might work the best, and it's allowed by city rules to do this. So are there any other comments about that? Are there other meetings you would like to add? We left February off. We'll just see how we do. We can always take up meetings as we hear from people and put it on the agenda. So is there a motion someone would make to approve the finding that it's in the best interest of the public for the Charter Review Commission to meet virtually on January 26 and March 9?
So moved, Deerdeck.
Okay, that's Commissioner Deerdeck has made that motion, and it's for those two meetings. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Granillo. Okay, any discussion, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we've taken care of a couple of meetings. Are there any matters from staff?
Chair Long, members, I'd like to welcome Connor to being the commission liaison. Thank you very much for volunteering to do that. He was excited after his work on some of the subject matter last time, so I'm very pleased that he'll be joining me up here. And we do have the position posted for Jesse's position, so if anyone knows anyone who would be interested, that is open through next Friday, so another 8 days, and then we'll be starting interviews right away. A Master's of Public Policy or a JD are preferred but not required. And then at least 5 years of relevant experience are required. And then that person would lead this office, the Office of Policy and Legislation. So if you know anyone who would be a good candidate, please send them to the city's HR website. We'd appreciate it. And then I would just say, I think Pat and Marcos are both here in case subcommittees would like to start meeting later after, if we get through the agenda and there's some time. I think they're here till maybe 6:30. So if we wanted to start discussing some of the subject matter, we're happy to stay and meet with subcommittees today. So
Thank you for that. And thank you, Pat and Marcos, for coming. We had talked about that possibility. It looked like a short agenda, and Aaron made the suggestion. I think it was a great one that the subcommittees could start talking. I have asked the staff to come up with a contact list. And I've got paper copies here, but we can email it to everybody. So you'll have everyone's email readily available and phone number. And we will get to that next after matters from the committee. Are there any matters from the committee? No, so we'll go to appointment of subcommittees. And Aaron can kind of tell us the rules about subcommittees, although it's more like a lack of rules, which is kind of nice. So why don't you go ahead, Aaron, and just.
Sure, Chair Long. The primary thing is just the Open Meetings Act I would be aware of. So we think we're going to make subcommittees of less than a majority of you, and then that allows you to just communicate freely, which is wonderful. You don't have to hold back from emailing members of your subcommittee. You can freely discuss either via email, phone, in person. So that's nice. And you don't have to publish a meeting in advance and all of that. But you would bring back the committee's findings and recommendations to this meeting when it's in the agenda for that to happen. So that's the nice part about having subcommittees is it's a lot more free flowing. You don't have to all be together when you're discussing things.
That's great. Okay, so I came up with some groupings on subcommittees and you can tell me what you think. So the first, I've got 3 subcommittees and I would like to be sort of a member at large of any of these and still not create a majority so that I can, if you all can, the chair of the subcommittee can let me know when you're meeting, I would love to listen in or participate as much as I can just to keep up with everything. So I've got the first committee is I call it the counselor district issues, and now I've added commissions to that. So that would be letters A, B, and G of the resolution. A is the appropriate number of city council districts. B is the number of city councilors per district. G is whether a city councilor who has lost a campaign for mayor may remain in office after the inauguration of a new mayor, what we call resign to run. And then Commissioner Pettis's commissions issue, I just added on to that. So I was proposing Commissioners Deerdak, Montoya, and Pettis to that subcommittee, and asking Commissioner Deerdak to be the chair of that subcommittee. The second committee I called the governance issues and financial audit. And that financial audit issue is the one that we voted on tonight. So that would be letters D, whether the city's mayor should have a more purely executive role rather than both legislative and executive roles. And if so, what new rights and limitations should be adopted along with such a separation of powers. E, whether counselors should be full-time. F, whether the roles of mayor, councilors, and city manager should be better defined. And then there would be the audit issue, and I'm proposing Commissioners Ortiz, Amador Guzman, and Commissioner Deerdak again has agreed to do more than one committee. And so that would be Commissioner Ortiz being the chair of that committee. And then the one that I called Human Rights Social Issues Subcommittee. And that would cover I in the resolution, whether the human and civil rights policy statement should be more specific with regard to breadth of required protections and our manner in which such rights should be protected. And then I would add to that if we consider the voting issues at another meeting, but that's all we have for that one right now. And that would be Commissioners Ives, Granillo, and Blondis. And then if we need to add more issues to that committee, we can. With Commissioner Ives being the chair.
I have a question, Madam Chair, about that. Commissioner Ives had mentioned also the possibility of talking about the creation of an office of equity.
You're correct. I remember he did say that, sort of the equity lens he was talking about when reviewing legislation. Okay, and that's not currently before us. I think we'd need to vote on that. So why don't we let him bring that back? But I think that is just the kind of thing that we could add to that subcommittee.
And if there's room for another one, I'd love to join that committee. I don't know about the majority issue there, but.
Yeah, why don't we add you to that committee? I won't plan on, well, that would be 4 of you, so I wouldn't attend that one. But I can always talk to your chair about it, the chair of the committee. So I'd be happy to add you to that if you're willing to do it.
Madam Chair, which commissioner was speaking?
Commissioner Perez, sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pettis. I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's our subcommittees, if that makes sense. Yes, Aaron.
Chair Long, I just was thinking, so those of you who sit on 2 committees, I think just be careful not to say, at my other committee, we're saying X or Y, because then you will be sharing amongst more than 4 people. So that could come into play in terms of information traveling between committees. It's fine to share it here, and this is where it should be shared. And then that's the way that your committee can find out if there's some overlap. I'm guessing there will be a little bit of overlap between like full-time and number of counselors and things like that. There might be some crossover of information that would be relevant to both committees,
Mhm.
but this is the location that should happen.
Yeah, and so maybe even, we'll talk about this when we put the agenda together, and I can talk to the chairs of the subcommittees, but we may want to hear those issues here. So if we need to move something over to that committee because it's just not working to keep it divided up that way, then we can talk about that and do it. Okay, so our next meeting is January 26th, and that one will be remote, and we are adjourned. So if you all want to stay and talk to your committee members.
Madam Chair, our chairman of the subcommittee is not here.
Okay, so that's the human rights, social issues.